Hi, this is Francisco from Aveiro. So yeah, I'm about to talk to you about something you probably already know about, but Ukraine has invaded Russia. And that's something that I wasn't expecting to see in this conflict. Um, Ukraine has avoided striking Russia for several motives. Firstly, because they've been focused on liberating their own land after the Russian invasion. Secondly, I believe that they've been warned by their allies not to do so, as a way to avoid the escalation that Putin has been threatening. And thirdly, because they don't want to add to Putin's mythology regarding this conflict and regarding the threat to Russia. We'll remember that one of the reasons that he gave for the full-on invasion of Ukraine was that you wanted to avoid encirclement, avoid a potential future invasion by NATO and its allies, and in general saw Ukraine as a target to be hit. However, after 2.5 years of this conflict, what we have is a point where all the red lines have been already passed, all the threats that Putin's regime have made have been void, like weapons, strikes, support, adhesions to NATO. Everything has been done, and the nuclear threats never really amounted to anything. So that's one thing. On the other hand, I think that after some long months, I think a year since Robotine, a year of grinding attritional war and trench warfare, simply we got to a point where Ukraine has nothing to gain in continuing to grind against the Russian meat waves against its own lines. So Russia needed to change the game, as Ed Nash very well pointed out. Ukraine needed to do something new so they could really challenge Russia. What they did was to make a daring invasion of the Kursk oblast. And it was, I mean, one of the reasons why I waited almost a week to talk about it was because I was kind of expecting it to pan out, and by the weekend it will have climaxed, and things will start to stabilize. So I could talk about it in more detail, but it's not stabilizing. The Russian government has said several times that they sent reinforcements. Reinforcements have fought the Ukrainians. The entire Ukrainian invasion force was destroyed, and now the front line was stable. That hasn't happened. Okay, let's go back a bit. So what happened? In the morning of the 6th, there were rumors start to appear about the presence of Ukrainian troops in Russian territory, in the Kursk oblast. At first, I thought, probably not. It's probably just propaganda. Putin wants to raise the stakes with the Russian people, and it will die when the Ukrainians say we have no one in Russia. Then the Ukrainians remained silent, but the Russian media just kept saying, like the Russian social networks just kept saying that, oh no, the Ukrainians are here, the Ukrainians are invading, the Ukrainians are everywhere. And at that point, I thought, okay, it's a raid. They're making a raid like they did in Belgorod last year with the Free Russia Legion. It's probably the same thing. And then the videos from Russian civilians and from Russian drones start to appear, and it's not Free Russia Legion, it's the Ukrainian army. It's invading. It's in Kursk. It's there, and then I start to get excited because they're not just there, they're just over the border, they're everywhere. They made a penetration of several kilometers and eventually of 20, 30 kilometers. And in just 3 or 4 days, they captured more territory than the Russians did in 6 months. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And then these last few days, we have a new invasion, also in Kursk, but a little more to the south, which apparently is already joined with the main thrust, so the front is widening. And in Belgorod, the Free Russian Legion is back home. And the Russians don't know what to do. Like, they kept sending reinforcements from the tactical reserves, and those guys just blasted away by HIMARS, by ambushes, by drones. In a single event, it is said that almost 500 Russians died when their convoy was hit by missiles, just because both civilians and the Russians themselves and the Russian military themselves just keep filming their departure, like, oh, we are going to Kursk, we are going to liberate our land, and here is everything we have to go there. And they film the plaques and the distances and everything around them, and the Ukrainians are like, oh, so they're there, let's kill them. And they promptly do so, because you can hit a target at dozens of kilometers away today. So that happened. And then now they are sending troops from Ukraine itself. They're sending troops from Kharkiv, from Avdiivka, from the south, from Vuhledar, from Kherson. They're sending everyone back home to fight the Ukrainians in Russia. I still can't believe that. Like, things were getting so desperate. I kept seeing like information about the Russians like are about to win the war. The Ukrainians don't have more reserves, don't have more troops, don't have more anything. They almost have no ammo, especially after the drought from last year when the Americans couldn't decide if they wanted to support their allies or not. And now they're invading Russia, and they're doing a hell of a good job at it. And the reinforcements just kept being pounded. And not just that, at night especially, since the invasion of Russia started, air bases have been pounded by missiles, and it has been really brutal, the destruction of the Russian air bases. One of them in Donetsk, if I'm not mistaken, was completely pulverized. That airbase is an ex-airbase. It does not exist anymore. And we don't even know how many aircraft were destroyed, but the support installations are gone. Kursk airbase was also obliterated. We don't know how deep the damages are, but they're there. And then they struck radars and oil installations in the Black Sea on the way towards the Crimea Bridge. And compounding all of this, in the last few days, apparently some counter strikes in New York and other regions in the Donbass produced results, and the Ukrainians recaptured some land they've lost in the last few weeks. And we're just seeing like the Russian war effort, at least for now, is completely falling apart by the seams. In Kursk, we have reports of hundreds, if not thousands, of prisoners of war, because the Russians simply give up. They're trying to make defensive lines around the nuclear power plant and the Kursk city itself, but the Ukrainians are not fighting in the traditional style. They're doing movement warfare, so those defense lines will probably be useless. And even if the Ukrainians leave now, the Russians will have to deal with the reality that they need to defend their entire border. They can just do what they've done, which is to send everyone to Ukraine and grind the Ukrainian defenses. They cannot do that because they need to defend the border, or they will get invaded again. assuming the Ukrainians will leave, because I don't think they will leave. They're being too successful right now to leave. So that has been happening. When we thought the Ukrainians have nothing left, when we thought they were about to lose the war, or at least they were on the way to do so, despite the grueling casualties suffered by Russia, like Russia, if the war ended now, Russia will need decades to recover from what they suffered thus far. You cannot suffer 500,000 deaths, military deaths, and expect to recover in a couple of years. That doesn't happen. You cannot lose all of your modern equipment. You cannot start fighting with equipment that is Korean War vintage and expect to become again a world power in the next decade. Russia is done as world as a world power. Like I kind of I didn't believe that when others were saying that. When Konstantin from Russia Inside, from like Georgie from Ukraine Matters, all of those people that I follow and from which I take my informations, they have been saying that Russia is done as a power for more than a year right now. Joe Broke is another great source of information. Apparently, that is true. Like once they're caught with their pants down, just the whole thing falls apart. Like it happened. Like even in the start of the war, in Kharkiv or Kherson in 2022, when they're caught with their pants down, they just crash because they're incompetent. Because the system they have, and I've been talking about this for over a long time. Even in my written reports before I start doing videos, I was talking about this. You cannot have a strongman leadership that is competent. That cannot happen. Because if it is competent, they will find a way to replace the leader. If the leader is leading for life, he needs people underneath him to be incompetent. So they will never bring him down. They are loyal. They do what he wants and nothing else. And the Russian system for the last 20 years has gravitated towards that. So that's why they have suffered so many deaths trying to invade a country that they wanted to invade in 3 days. Because they aren't competent enough to attain superiority. I mean, let's see the invasion of Iraq. It was a done deal in a couple of weeks because the Americans attained superiority in all regards from the start. The Russians don't do that because they cannot do that. And they cannot do that because that's how it's supposed to be. Because if the military was competent, they will have ousted Putin long ago. And right now, they are being invaded by the people they wanted to invade. Good job. So I'm being very ironic on this, but it's just there were so many informations that were so negative, so terrible, and I'm always warning about always giving warnings regarding strong men and regarding ideology, because when someone as influential as Putin or Napoleon or wherever attains a victory, people will follow them. Even if they are destroyed afterwards, people will follow them. People still want to follow they want to follow Hitler and Stalin long after they're dead. And if Putin, with his system of loyalty and incompetence and dehumanization of its own people, if he wins anything, believe me, many leaders in the world will want to do the same. They will imitate him. They already are. And seeing the issues with such a government being laid bare as they are, is really exciting. Let's see what happens next. I'll talk to you again later. See ya.